She discovers a hidden recording, her ex's incredible betrayal exposed after 3 years of mockery. The rain pelted the roof like 1,000 tiny reminders of the heartache Sarah had endured. She had made it through 3 years since Mike had walked out the door, the smell of freshly baked pies drowning out her tears most days. As the storm raged outside, she rummaged through the attic of her childhood home, a place filled with echoes of laughter and light. And there it was, an old recording device covered in dust and time. Curiosity tugged at her. She pressed play, not knowing her life would be tossed upside down. Suddenly, Mike's voice crackled through the speaker. "Can you believe this? Sarah thinks she's gonna run her dad's diner and make it big." His laughter pierced her heart, a mocking tone that twisted the knife already lodged inside. "She's just a stepping stone, you know. I'll be out of here in no time, living the life everyone dreams of." Each mocking word stung deep within her, awakening a fire she thought had long been snuffed out. Tears blurred her vision, the warm raindrops from the window mixing with the chill of her realization. He had never believed in her. How could he? She was just the girl next door, working hard to keep the family's legacy alive while he chased wealth and status. But that betrayal ignited something fierce inside her, a determination to reclaim her strength. Her father's diner was more than a business. It was love, hope, and the spirit of the community wrapped in every chef's coat and hand-stitched booth. In the days that followed, Sarah prepared for the town fair, an event where she had planned to unveil a new menu inspired by her father's recipes. Now, it felt like the perfect stage for confrontation. Mike had announced his return to town, flaunting his successful life with a woman who suited him better in the eyes of society. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the day of the fair arrived, the air buzzed with excitement, yet Sarah's heart raced with tension. What would she say? Could she transform years of hurt into a message of strength? The laughter and chatter of families around her faded, replaced by the pounding of her heartbeat in her ears. She could feel the loyal faces of her neighbors watching, their silent support urging her on. Each step drew her closer to reclaiming her narrative. She gripped the microphone, her hands trembling yet filled with purpose. This wasn't just about confronting Mike. It was about standing tall, embodying the spirit of the diner, the love surrounding her. Would they understand her fight for dignity? The truth of her journey stood ready to be told. Could she turn her pain into empowerment for everyone who had ever felt small or invisible? The crowd hushed, eyes wide, waiting for the storm to break loose. Would she find the courage to voice her truth? The moment hung heavy in the air, a mix of excitement and uncertainty simmering just below the surface, and as Sarah took a deep breath, she braced herself for the transformation ahead. What awaited her in this dance with destiny? Would this fair, filled with laughter and dreams, change everything? The crowd murmured, anticipation electrifying the air around her. She could sense the weight of their eyes. Friends, neighbors, and old acquaintances gathered together under the faded blue awning. They had known her before Mike, when dreams were as simple as sharing pie and laughter. But now, standing in this moment, it wasn't just a memory, it was a battleground. With her heart pounding heavily, Sarah inhaled deeply, letting the scent of cinnamon and fresh coffee fill her lungs. It was a reminder of the diner and of what she was fighting for. Not just her family's legacy, but her own identity that had been dimmed by years of doubt. "I never thought I'd be back here, not like this," she started, her voice trembling at first but gaining strength. 3 years ago, I lost not just a partner, but a part of myself in believing someone else's vision for my life. I thought love was about support, encouragement." She paused, rolling her shoulders back, gathering her thoughts. But it wasn't love, it was a prison. The crowd shifted, heads nodding gently in understanding. It felt good to be seen, to know that they were behind her. While I was busy putting on a smile and baking pies, there was this voice playing in my head, telling me I was never enough. And as I stood here today, ready to present a menu that reflects everything I've learned, I can finally say I've discovered something far more valuable than any dish. She looked directly at the horizon, her eyes glistening. I've discovered my worth. The crowd erupted in applause, a wave of support rippling through them. Sarah's heart surged with a mix of gratitude and newfound determination. She spotted Mike in the back, standing with his new partner, a shadow of mockery hanging over his expression. But this time, it didn't pierce her heart as it once would have. Instead, it fueled her fire. And to all the women and men who have ever felt small or unheard, I want you to know you aren't alone. Every pie baked, every dish served is a piece of our stories. And today, at this fair, we reclaim our tales. The energy in the space shifted, moving from individual pain to collective empowerment. Voices rose as more and more people joined in, cheering her on. It was no longer just Sarah's battle. It had transformed into a movement of bravery. As she finished her speech, she felt lighter. The humiliation and heartache that once clung to her had started to fall away like autumn leaves. She stepped down from the makeshift stage, each step more confident than the last, when suddenly she was enveloped in hugs and warm smiles. Then she spotted Julie, her best friend, with tears of joy streaming down her face. "You did it. You really did it," Julie exclaimed, beaming. But as Sarah took in the supportive energy, a different kind of storm brewed in her heart. Mike's eyes were locked on her, cold and calculating, his expression shifting from mockery to something darker. Sarah's stomach tightened. What would he do next? Feeling the weight of the moment, she turned back to the crowd, the vibe electric but her heart uneasy. Had she truly turned the page, or would Mike's shadow follow her? With every passing second, that question lingered, a storm gathering just out of sight, ready to break. What would the future hold for her awakening spirit? Would it be able to withstand the fallout of Mike's resentment? The real battle was just beginning. The applause faded, but Sarah felt the lingering energy in the air. It swirled around her, thick and buoyant, yet the chill from Mike's stare settled uncomfortably on her skin. She turned her back on the stage to the crowd of supporters, but his presence felt like iron chains dragging at her heels. "Maybe we should grab some pie," Julie suggested, her eyes sparkling. "After that speech, you deserve a slice." Sarah nodded absently, forcing a smile, yet the delight of the fair melted into a fog of doubt. Did she truly reclaim her story, or had she just painted a target on her back? As they strolled through the fair, the scents of fried dough and fresh lemonade permeated the air. Laughter rang out from the booths, but beneath it, Sarah felt something darker lurking. Mike had never been one to back down, especially not when his ego was at stake. "Sarah, hey!" A voice broke her reverie. It was Tom, an old friend from high school, a warm smile lighting up his face. "You were amazing. I've never seen you so alive." Sarah felt a dash of warmth. "Thanks, Tom. It means a lot. You've got something special. You should do this more often," he said, nodding vigorously. "Maybe I will," she replied, the flicker of determination returning. But just over Tom's shoulder she caught Mike moving closer. His new partner, Molly, wore a smirk that screamed trouble. In this moment, Sarah's pulse quickened, a wave of dread crashing over her. The mask of calm confidence felt thin. "Hey, Sarah," Mike called out, a casual arrogance in his tone. "Nice little speech. Too bad it's all hot air." Anger clashed with fear in Sarah's chest. She met his eyes head-on. "I'm not afraid of your words anymore, Mike." "Oh, I'm not just talking about the speech," he replied, his voice layered with mockery. "Let's just hope the past stays buried. Some things are better left unsaid." Before Sarah could respond, he sauntered away, laughter trailing behind him. Her heart raced as unease set in. What did he mean by that? "Let's grab that pie," Julie suggested again, unaware of the fear skittering beneath Sarah's skin. They approached the booth, where a warm golden crust beckoned seductively. As Sarah took a bite, the sweet flavor filled her with momentary joy, but it quickly turned sour in her throat. Suddenly, she remembered the USB drive she'd found while cleaning up, the one Mike had dropped, along with a pile of forgotten junk. She had tucked it away, intending to look at it. Her heart raced as she thought of the possibilities. What if there was something incriminating on it? "What's wrong?" Julie asked, noticing Sarah's distant gaze. "Nothing," Sarah lied, forcing a smile. "Just deep in thought." "Your face says otherwise," Julie pressed, concern shadowing her features. "I think I need to check something out," Sarah replied, determination replacing apprehension. "And it's not over yet. I just need to know." As the fair hummed around her, a new fire ignited within Sarah. The winds of change were blowing, and she had to prepare for the tempest that Mike was stirring. What was on that USB drive? Would it reveal the truth about her past, or give Mike more ammunition against her? Sarah's heart beat faster as she realized that she was standing on the edge of something monumental, teetering between fear and the unknown. The noise of the fair faded into a distant hum as Sarah walked away from Julie, her mind racing. The USB drive felt heavier in her pocket, like a ticking time bomb she had unwittingly decided to carry. She stepped aside, seeking a quieter corner behind a cluster of booths where the sounds of laughter and chatter turned into an indistinct murmur. Taking a deep breath, she pulled the USB drive from her pocket, inspecting it under the glow of a nearby bulb. It was small, simple, yet its potential to unravel everything was immense. What secrets could it hold? Against her better judgment, she plugged it into her phone, her fingers trembling slightly as she navigated to the files. Come on," she whispered to herself as she waited for the screen to load. After what felt like an eternity, a folder opened. A quick glance showed several audio files, and Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Just as she selected the first file, a voice caught her attention. It was Mike's voice, cold and cutting. "The moment she thinks she can stand up for herself, I'll be right there to remind her who's really in charge." Her stomach twisted. What had she stumbled upon? A recording of Mike strategizing, plotting against her. The betrayal cut deeper than she anticipated. The trust she thought she had broken was now a weapon against her. She cycled through the files frantically, hearing snippets of conversations that painted a picture of his manipulation, his ongoing schemes, and the laughable lies he spread about her. With each second, she could feel the anger building within her. This was the evidence she had been looking for. The more she listened, the clearer it became. Mike had not just belittled her. He had painted her as a failure in their community, crafting a story that benefited him at her expense. But why now? Why had he recorded these moments? "Are you still there?" Julie's voice broke through her thoughts, pulling her back to reality. "I'm fine," Sarah replied quickly, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. But she was far from fine. Each file she played unveiled another layer to the insidious web Mike had woven. "I'm not worried about Sarah anymore. She'll self-destruct if I just give her enough rope," he laughed in another recording, his tone dripping with malice. At that moment, Sarah understood. This USB was not just a tool, it was her lifeline. It could expose Mike for the conman he was, could free her from the chains he had locked her in for years. "Sarah!" Julie's voice called again, closer this time. Panic surged through her as she scrambled to delete the last file she had opened. What if someone saw it? Mike could easily turn this against her. She had to be careful. "Just a second," she called back, her mind racing with possibilities. With a final swipe, she exited the app and pocketed the drive. She felt a mixture of dread and exhilaration rush through her. As Julie rounded the corner, her eyes sparkling with excitement, Sarah braced herself for the confrontation ahead. She had to be smart. She had to play her cards right. Mike was still out there, lurking in the shadows of her triumph, ready to strike. What should she do with this information? Should she confront Mike directly, or should she expose him to the community he had twisted against her? Uncertainty gnawed at her, but beneath it all, a flicker of hope ignited. The battle was just beginning, and she was ready to fight. She was not just reclaiming her story, she was rewriting it. But as Sarah walked back to meet Julie, a chilling thought crept into her mind. Would Mike come after her for this? Would he retaliate in ways she could not anticipate? The thrill of power surged through her veins, but behind it lay the lurking fear of what might come next. What kind of war had she just declared? Julie's voice burst through the clouds of Sarah's thoughts, pulling her back into the chaos of the fair. "You look like you've seen a ghost. What's up?" She chuckled, a hint of concern in her eyes, but Sarah only managed an awkward smile. "Just, the fair." "It's wild," she said, forcing herself to nod, but her mind was still racing, replaying Mike's cold laughter. She could feel the USB drive pressing against her hip, a constant reminder of the power she now possessed. "Come on, let's hit the Ferris wheel. The view is supposed to be amazing." Julie's voice rang with enthusiasm, pulling Sarah further back into the present. "Sure, just give me a sec," Sarah said, pretending to scroll through her phone, desperately trying to buy time. She needed a plan. Confronting Mike at the fair didn't feel right, but exposing him to everyone else seemed like an uphill battle. She had to think this through, carefully. "Are you okay? You seem off," Julie insisted, peering into Sarah's eyes. A mix of concern and friendship radiated from her. "Yeah, just the lights and the people. A little overwhelming," Sarah replied, managing to mask her turmoil. But deep down, her heart was a storm, beating furiously as pictures of Mike tormented her. "Let's grab a bite first before we go up high. A funnel cake will help," Julie suggested with a grin. Sarah nodded, knowing the distraction was good. A funnel cake wouldn't solve her problems, but it might help quiet her racing thoughts, if only for a moment. They made their way through the fairgrounds, the sweet scent of fried dough mingling with the laughter of children and the blast of carnival music. As Sarah chewed on the sugary dessert, her mind wandered. What should she do next? She couldn't just let Mike's manipulations slide. She wasn't just a victim anymore. She was a warrior armed with evidence. Yet the fear began to creep back in. "Hey, look, it's Mike," Julie said suddenly, pointing toward a group of people just a few feet away. The mention of his name sent a jolt through Sarah. Mike stood in the middle, surrounded by friends, that same smirk plastered on his face, confident and relaxed, like he ruled the world. A knot formed in Sarah's stomach as she instinctively stepped back. She had no idea how he would react if he found out about the USB, or that she had heard his cruel plots. We should go," she stammered out, feeling trapped. "Why? He doesn't even know we're here." Julie laughed, oblivious to Sarah's rising anxiety. "Let's get away," Sarah insisted, her voice shaky. The last thing she needed was to catch his attention. She pulled Julie away, but her mind was still racing. As they passed the booths, Sarah's resolve began to firm. What was the worst that could happen? There was no way she could just let Mike walk around, unaware that she now held his downfall in that tiny USB drive. "Are you sure you're okay? You're acting really weird," Julie pointed out again, brows knit in concern. "Yeah, I promise, just tired," Sarah muttered, her heart pounding with determination. But inside, a question simmered. Should she confront him now, or wait? The weight of decision sat heavily on her shoulders. Rethinking the past made her dizzy. What would be worse, letting him get away with this, or risking everything by standing up to him? As they moved deeper into the fair, Sarah felt an unshakable urge to rise from the ashes of Mike's betrayal. Whatever happened next, it would define who she would be from now on, and she wasn't going to be anyone's puppet anymore. And then she felt it. The USB, a spark of courage ignited in her gut. But would that be enough when the moment to act presented itself? As they approached the next booth, her breath caught. The future felt uncertain, and yet, wasn't the fight already worth it? They wandered from the booth selling stuffed animals to the vibrant lights of the carnival games. Each step pulsed with Sarah's mounting anxiety, her senses heightened as if she were walking through a minefield. The noise of laughter, cheers, and clanging bells only amplified the storm within her. "Let's try that ring toss," Julie suggested, her eyes sparkling. Sarah forced a smile, but the pit in her stomach churned. "I'll watch," she said quickly, lingering at the edge of the game, her attention drifting back to Mike. He hadn't moved. He was still there, laughing loudly with his friends. throwing back his head in that infuriating way that made Sarah feel small. Inside, a battle raged, her newfound power against the crippling fear of confrontation. The cold grip of unease wrapped around her throat. Just do it. She heard a voice inside her scream. "Hey, want to take this ride?" Julie called, pointing toward a spinning carnival attraction that looked as chaotic as her thoughts. "Come on, it'll be fun." "Yeah, fun," Sarah echoed, but it sounded hollow. The USB drive felt like a burning coals in her pocket, heating her determination. She glanced once more at Mike. What if he knows? Taking a deep breath, Sarah held up her phone. "Actually, I've got to make a quick call. Why don't you start without me?" She barely recognized her voice, steadying her nerves as Julie frowned, but turned toward the ride with reluctance. Once alone, Sarah walked further away. Heart thumping, she slipped behind a row of food stalls. The familiar ache of betrayal intensified, and she could already feel her pulse racing as she checked the USB one more time. Maybe this was the moment she had been waiting for. Gathering her courage, she stepped around the stalls, her eyes locked on Mike. She could hear snippets of his laughter mixed with the sounds of the fair, the world around her fading. It was just him and her, like it had always been, except now she was armed with the truth. "Hey, Mike!" she shouted, her voice breaking through the noise. The energy of the moment shifted, his laughter halted. All heads turned, and the air around her seemed to thicken. "What do you want, loser?" he replied, smirking. His friends looked on, amusement dancing in their eyes, making Sarah's heart pound louder. She clenched the USB tightly in her fist, shaking inside but resolute. "I want you to stop pretending everything is fine. I know what you did." Her voice was stronger than she felt, echoing with authority. "What are you talking about?" He stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "I found out about your little plans, Mike. About everything you said behind my back." The words spilled out, loud and clear, shattering his facade. "And I have proof." His cocky smile faltered, just for a moment, but it was enough for Sarah to push forward. "You can't keep lying anymore. It ends tonight." A wave of trepidation washed over her at his expression. It transformed into something dark, calculating. "You think you can just go around threatening me?" His voice dropped, dripping with malice. Staring into his eyes, she felt a powerful shift. This was her moment, to stand up for herself, to reclaim the narrative after years of feeling small. She lifted the USB, a symbol of her strength, and turned it toward him. "I'm not afraid of you anymore." Julie's voice broke through the tension as she approached. "Sarah, what's going on?" The crowd around them began to stir, whispers rising. Sarah's heart raced as she faced both her friend and her tormentor. "I'm ready to expose the truth," she said, feeling the pulse of her decision rise within her. What would Mike do now? Could he squash her courage, or would she unveil the person he truly was? The moment held a promise, a crack in the facade of her fear. As silence enveloped them, she knew she was on the edge of something big. Did she have what it took to see this through? The stakes had never felt higher. Mike's eyes narrowed, calculating. The smirk vanished from his face as the crowd's whispering grew louder, feeding on the tension like flames on dry grass. Sarah felt every gaze boring into her, and the heat of embarrassment threatened to wash over her. She could almost hear the thoughts racing through their minds. Why was she confronting him? What could she possibly have? But she stood her ground, heart pounding, a whirlpool of fear and adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Proof of what?" Mike finally spat, feigning indifference, but Sarah could see the flicker of worry hidden behind his bravado. "You seriously think anyone cares about your silly little accusations?" "It's not silly," she shot back, the strength of her words surprising even herself. "You may have hidden behind your jokes for too long, but I finally see you for who you really are. And so does everyone else here." "What are you going to do with that USB, huh?" His voice dripped with disdain, but there was an underlying edge that Sarah couldn't ignore. "You think you can just ruin my life because yours is a mess?" For a moment, time froze. The clamor of the carnival faded into a distant hum. She glanced at Julie, who stood near, concern etched on her face. It felt like Sarah was the only person in the world who mattered right then. "I'm going to show everyone the truth," she declared, her voice gaining strength. "Truth? You mean your version of it?" His friends laughed, egging him on, but Sarah saw the cracks forming in his facade. It was the same laughter that had wounded her for so long, but now it felt different. The power had shifted. "Yeah, my version," she said. "And it's backed up by facts." She held her phone up, ready to push play, but fear crawled back in. What if it backfired? What if this moment ended in disaster? As if sensing her hesitation, Mike took a step closer, invading her space like a storm cloud. "You don't know what you're messing with, Sarah," he said quietly, his voice low and threatening. "I can make this all go away." Something dark twisted in her gut. "You don't scare me, Mike, you never have." But as those words left her mouth, she felt a tremor of uncertainty. The past echoed louder, years of taunts and ridicule flooding back. Could she really dismantle the confidence he'd ripped away from her? A sudden surge of clarity struck. She was so much stronger now. She had something tangible, something real. With a deep breath, she willed away the doubt. "Watch me," she replied fiercely, tapping the screen. The first chilling sound filled the air. It was Mike's voice from months before, a recording hidden deep within the USB. Laughter intermingled with cruel remarks filled the space, snippets of betrayal laid bare for everyone to hear. A murmur swept through the crowd as his voice played on. Invitations to parties she hadn't been told about. Insults shared with friends when her back was turned. All told in that mocking tone that felt all too familiar. The laughter faded as shock hit the crowd, eyes darting between Sarah and Mike. She sensed a crack forming in his confident armor as he fumbled for a comeback, but she wasn't going to give him the chance. The deepest part of her had shattered years of silence. This was more than about exposing Mike. It was about reclaiming her dignity. But as the realization washed over her, she also felt a flicker of hope. Would they finally see him for who he was? Would she find the strength to walk away head held high? Then came a small whisper from Julie, barely audible over their disbelief. "Sarah, you did it." But just as triumph danced in her chest, Mike reached for her phone, desperation flashing across his face. "You don't know what you're doing," he yelled, but his eyes told a different story. Caught in the crossfire of emotions, Sarah gripped the phone tighter. "I'm done living in your shadow," she declared, "and I won't let you win this time." Every heart around them beat in synchrony, captivated by the unfolding drama. Victory felt so close, yet she wasn't sure what may come next. Her heart pounded like a drum as the reality loomed. What would happen when the truth fully surfaced? Would she be able to walk away unscathed, or had she unleashed something far darker than she ever anticipated? The crowd gasped as the echo of Mike's voice filled the air, a startling reminder of the darkness that lingered in the corners of her life. Sarah's heart raced, emotions wrestling for control. Here she stood, flipping the script on her bully, and yet, doubt crept in. Had she underestimated what this confrontation might unleash? As the recording blared on, Mike's bravado began to crumble. The thrill of revealing the truth gave way to a gnawing anxiety. Each laugh that followed Mike's taunts stung like daggers, reminding her of all those moments when she'd felt small and unnoticed. Would they pity her, or would they finally understand? Would they empathize with her struggle, or turn away in judgment? Mike's face flushed, a dark hue overshadowing his previous confidence. "Turn it off," he yelled, his voice cracking. But Sarah couldn't look away. A glimmer of satisfaction danced in her chest, mixed with the fear of what might come next. She scanned the crowd, faces shifting from shock to intrigue, then to whispers of disbelief. Their reactions were like fireflies dancing in the twilight, flickering with uncertainty. She felt a presence beside her. It was Julie, her best friend who had seen her rise from the ashes. "You've got this, Sarah," Julie whispered, a fierce determination in her eyes. The steady grip on her arm sent warmth spiraling through her. In that moment, Sarah realized she was not just standing against Mike. She was standing for every person who had been pushed around, silenced, and disregarded. "What do you think this proves?" Mike sneered, regaining his composure. "You think this changes anything?" "Yes!" Her voice rang out fierce. "It proves that I won't be afraid of you anymore. It's proof that I'm not alone." With each word, the storm inside her calmed. The power of her voice resonated, wrapping around the hearts of those watching. They leaned in, their collective focus etched on her uncertainty, but also on her courage blooming before them. Then Mike lunged forward, desperation clawing at his features. "You think they're on your side?" he spat, glancing at the crowd. "They'll turn on you. You'll be the one they despise." But something shifted in the crowd. A voice called out, "You used to be cool, Mike, but this isn't right." Others murmured in agreement, support rising like a tide against him. In that moment, they had flipped the narrative. No longer was Sarah the invisible girl that Mike had bullied. She was brave, standing on her own, defiantly pushing against the destructive tide he had created. "Look at them, Mike," she stated, her voice steady. "Look at what your cruelty has done. You're losing your grip." The reality of her words sunk into the crowd. The thrill of exposing the truth was intoxicating, invigorating. Each face transformed, shifting from skepticism to solidarity. But suddenly, Mike lurched forward, reaching the phone again. Panic spurred within her. What if he succeeded in silencing her? "Mike, don't you dare!" she shouted, desperation clawing at the edges of her composure. In the flurry of chaos, hands from the crowd reached toward him. But Sarah's heart raced not just with fear, but with the hope of what lay on the horizon. Just then, something inside her flickered. A kaleidoscope of emotions surged forward. Anger blended with resolve, despair with strength. It dawned on her that this was not just about destroying Mike. It was about forging a new path for herself. As she tightened her grip, the crowd surged behind her, uniting in a swell of support that eclipsed her fear. But what would be the final outcome? Would Mike retaliate, and what was left of his power? Tomorrow promised uncertainty, but Sarah welcomed it. How far would she go to reclaim her narrative, and would the truth be enough to break the chains of her past? What other secrets lay in the shadows, waiting to be unearthed? The air crackled with tension as Mike's eyes darted around, searching the faces in the crowd. For the first time, he looked unsure, and that fear gave Sarah strength. There was a shift, a palpable change. It felt like the tide was turning. She could feel the heavy weight of judgment lift slightly from her shoulders, replaced by hope. "Back off, Mike!" a voice cried from the crowd. It was Chris, the quiet kid who had always been around but never stood out. Him speaking up was like a spark igniting a fire. A handful of others joined him, stepping forward, their eyes set on Mike with equal parts defiance and anger. "Yeah, this isn't cool," shouted another, someone from the basketball team. Sarah's heart swelled at the unexpected solidarity blooming before her eyes. "See?" Mike stammered, the veneer of his bravado cracking. "They're just following along. They don't really care." She could see the doubt washing over him. It was intoxicating. For so long, he had been her nightmare, a dark cloud hanging over her head. Now here he was, eerily vulnerable, faced with the very people he had bullied himself. It was surreal. "If they didn't care, they wouldn't be here supporting you," Sarah shot back, feeling more emboldened with every passing moment. Every word cleared away the fog of fear. This was her moment. "They're tired of your lies. Everyone is. All those rumors, all that pain. It stops now." The crowd began to murmur in agreement, voices rising in a chorus of unity. She could feel an unfamiliar power coursing through her veins. It was exhilarating. "Whatever," Mike scoffed, attempting to regain control, but his voice quivered with uncertainty. "You think this makes you a hero? You're just embarrassing yourself." "No, Mike," she replied, her tone even but strong. "It makes me free. It makes all of us free. This ends now, not just for me, but for anyone who's ever felt worthless because of you." The crowd erupted in supportive shouts and cheers, a wave of emotion washing over her. The connection felt electric. They were no longer separate entities. They were bonded by shared experiences, united against a common enemy. Sarah's eyes sparkled, hope shining brighter than any fear could dim. But just then, an ominous silence fell over the crowd. Mike's face twisted into a grimace of anger as he took a step back, hands balled into fists. "This isn't over, Sarah," he spat, his voice low and threatening. "You think you can just humiliate me and get away with it?" In that moment, Sarah felt a chill crawl up her spine. A flicker of fear threatened to re-emerge, but she wouldn't let it. "You'll have to change if you want to change this," she called back, trying to inject assurance into her words. "This is just the beginning. I refuse to be your victim anymore." Without warning, he turned and shoved his way through the crowd, his anger radiating like a storm. It felt triumphant to watch him go, but a part of her couldn't shake off the tension. Deep down, she knew this wasn't the end either. As the crowd began to disperse, cheer and support still buzzed around her. Sarah felt a stranger's hand on her shoulder. Turning, she found herself looking into the determined eyes of a fellow student. "What's next, Sarah?" they asked, voice filled with a mix of concern and curiosity. She took a deep breath, her mind racing. The strength had come from confronting Mike, but where would that strength lead her now? What could she do next to ensure other students felt just as empowered? Would she brave the depths of her own insecurities, or find a way to make a broader change? "I don't know yet," she said slowly, her heart pounding with newfound determination. "But I promise you, I'm not done fighting. Not by a long shot." With that vow hanging in the air, she turned back toward the school, ready to discover what lay ahead. What power lay beneath the surface of her own story, waiting to be awakened? And what challenges would she face in the pursuit of her truth? The weeks that followed the fair were nothing short of transformative. Each day felt like a new chapter unfurling, filled with both promise and a palpable tension from the confrontation with Mike. Sarah poured herself into the diner, redesigning menus, hosting community events and strengthening ties with her neighbors. The diner flourished, echoing with laughter and the sizzle of fresh pies in the oven. But the shadow of Mike lingered, a dark reminder of past struggles. He had retreated, but Sarah could feel his anger simmering beneath the surface. Each time she walked into town, she felt the weight of his stare, a constant, unsettling specter. One afternoon, as she swept the floor of the diner, a familiar face appeared in the doorway. It was Julie, her friend and confidant, bursting with excitement. "You won't believe it, Sarah," Julie exclaimed, her enthusiasm lighting up the room. "We're setting up a local support group, just for anyone who's ever felt pushed aside or bullied. We want it to be a place where everyone can share their stories." Tears prickled at Sarah's eyes. "That sounds amazing," she responded, joy welling up inside her. Finally, there was a way to channel all that anger and grief into something powerful for their community. "I want in," she declared, her heart racing at the thought of using her experience to uplift others. Days turned into weeks as they organized meetings, prepared workshops, and spread the word. The little diner became the beating heart of their movement. Every seat in the diner filled with people who had weathered storms of their own, stories spilling forth like the pie filling that bubbled in her ovens. One evening, she stood before the group, filled with warmth and purpose. "We are not alone anymore," she said. "Everyone here has a voice, and it deserves to be heard. By sharing, we reclaim our power." The room erupted in applause, and Sarah marveled at the strength they all shared. But even with the growing support, the specter of Mike's presence loomed like a dark cloud. His absence felt like a storm gathering strength, ready to unleash itself at any moment. Then came the day when everything changed. Sarah had just closed the diner for the evening when Mike walked in, his expression dark and unreadable. Her heart raced, but something deep within her shifted. There was no fear, just a strong resolve. She stood her ground, refusing to let him intimidate her any longer. "What's wrong, Mike?" she asked, her voice steady. "Cat got your tongue, or are you here to pick a fight again?" He stared at her, a tempest of emotions swirling beneath his surface. "You think you have everyone fooled?" he spat, the venom in his words palpable. "What do you think will happen when everyone hears the real story?" "The real story's already being told," Sarah shot back, her heart pounding, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "By us. You don't have power over me anymore." Mike stepped closer, desperation etched deep into his features. "You think you're a hero? This will all blow up in your face." "Not this time, Mike," she replied firmly, standing her ground. "Whatever you think you can take from me, you're wrong. I have friends, a community, and they know the truth. His laughter echoed ominously. You think those people care? They'll turn on you like they always have. You're just one more loser to them. But something shifted within Sarah. The doubt that once lived in her heart evaporated, replaced by a bright, unwavering confidence. There was a power in her vulnerability, and she was no longer ashamed of it. If they do, so be it. I'll still rise. I'll still speak out for every single person you bullied, including myself. With that, she turned and left him standing alone, his rage simmering behind her. As she stepped outside, the cool night air filled her lungs, ridding her of the lingering weight of confrontation. This was the last time Mike would haunt her. Inspired by their journey, the support group gained momentum, sparking real change in the community. Sarah, backed by Julie and countless new friends, organized events to foster dialogue and understanding. They turned the pain and betrayal into strength, demonstrating there was always hope, even when darkness loomed nearby. Months later, as she stood behind the counter of her thriving diner, Sarah glanced out the window, the sun setting in a tapestry of gold and crimson. The laughter of friends echoed around her, fueling a sense of belonging. She had rewritten her story, transforming the whispers of doubt into roars of empowerment. Though Mike's shadow still lingered in the corners of her mind, it was no longer crippling. Instead, it was a reminder of just how far she had come, and how strong she had grown. Hey, are you ready for the big gala? Julie's cheerful voice interrupted her thoughts, filled with excitement for their upcoming community event. We're gonna make waves tonight. Sarah turned with a radiant smile, her heart swelling with gratitude. Absolutely. Let's change the narrative, one event at a time. And as she faced the community of supporters, she knew with certainty, this was only the beginning. Together, they would light up the world, fighting for the stories that mattered, reclaiming their voices, and reminding everyone that no one deserved to feel small. And with resolve shimmering in her heart, Sarah took a deep breath, ready to step into the future with courage. You need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support for our journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let it know we're here. Don't wait. Not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Comment your reactions. We can't wait to hear your thoughts.